My wife is pregnant. According to my medical records, that should be impossible. I don't know how to process this. I am sitting in my car outside a Starbucks right now, trying to figure out how to even write this without sounding completely insane. My wife just told me she is pregnant and I should be over the moon about it. Instead, I am having the kind of panic attack that makes you question everything you thought you knew about your life. Some background that is going to sound like I am making excuses for what I am thinking. But I promise it is relevant. 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with azoospermia. For those who don't know, that means my sperm count is essentially 0, not low, not borderline, 0, multiple tests, multiple doctors, same result every time. It happened during a routine physical when I mentioned that Sloan and I had been trying to conceive for about 8 months with no success. My doctor suggested some basic fertility testing, and that is when we discovered the issue. The urologist was pretty clear. Natural conception wasn't going to happen for us. Sloan handled it better than I did. Honestly, she immediately started researching IVF options, sperm donor procedures, adoption agencies. She was solution-oriented while I was still processing the fact that my body had fundamentally failed at something I had assumed would just work when we were ready. We decided to table the whole thing for a while. The treatments were expensive, emotionally draining, and we both agreed we needed some time to just be married without the pressure of baby-making hanging over everything. Fast forward to last night. Sloan comes home from work looking different, excited, nervous, like she was holding on to some big secret. Wade, we need to talk about something. My immediate thought was work drama or maybe an issue with her family, but she sits me down and pulls out a pregnancy test. Positive, very clearly positive. I am pregnant, she says. Grinning like this is the best news in the world. I stared at that test for probably 30 seconds, my brain trying to process information that didn't compute. How is that possible? I asked. Her smile faltered a little. What do you mean? I mean, according to every doctor I have seen, I cannot get you pregnant naturally. So how are you pregnant? The conversation that followed was awkward as hell. She got defensive. I got analytical. And we both ended up frustrated. She kept saying things like miracles happen, and medicine isn't always right, while I am sitting there thinking about statistical probabilities and medical certainty. Here is where this gets complicated, and I hate myself for even thinking this. I have trust issues from my previous relationship. My ex-girlfriend Ashley cheated on me for the last 6 months of our relationship. I found out when she left her email open, and I saw messages with some guy she had been seeing behind my back. Not just physical, emotional affair, making plans, talking about their future together while still living with me. The betrayal wasn't just the cheating, it was how good she was at lying about it. How normal everything seemed while she was completely deceiving me. I thought we were solid, thought I knew her completely, and it turned out I didn't know her at all. Sloan knows this history. We have talked about it extensively. She has been patient with my occasional paranoia, understanding when I need reassurance, never made me feel broken for having trust issues. But sitting there last night, looking at a pregnancy test that represented something medical science said was impossible, my brain went to a very dark place. What if she has been seeing someone else? What if this is like Ashley all over again? Except now there is going to be a baby involved. I tried to push these thoughts away, but they kept coming. Sloan travels for work sometimes. She has been getting home late more often recently. Last month she mentioned grabbing drinks with colleagues after a client dinner, something she doesn't usually do. None of these things meant anything suspicious when they were happening, but when you are looking for patterns, you can find them anywhere. I asked her if she wanted to call the doctor first thing in the morning to confirm the pregnancy and start prenatal care. Of course, she said. I already made an appointment for Friday. Already made an appointment. Before telling me, which could mean she is excited and proactive, or it could mean she has been dealing with this longer than she is letting on. I spent last night staring at the ceiling, Googling azoospermia false diagnosis, and sperm count improvement and pregnancy after 0 sperm count. The medical literature is pretty clear. Spontaneous recovery is extremely rare, usually associated with resolving some underlying condition, and typically involves gradual improvement over time. I haven't had any treatments. Haven't changed medications or lifestyle significantly. According to everything I can find, my diagnosis hasn't changed. This morning Sloan was buzzing around getting ready for work, talking about pregnancy apps and prenatal vitamins, and how we should start thinking about converting the guest room into a nursery. I wanted to share her excitement. I should be thrilled that we are going to have a baby without needing expensive fertility treatments. But instead, I am sitting here wondering if I am about to repeat the worst experience of my life with someone I thought I could trust completely. The rational part of my brain knows that medical diagnoses can be wrong, that bodies can change, that stranger things have happened. But the part of my brain that got destroyed by Ashley's betrayal is screaming that something doesn't add up. I don't know how to bring this up with Sloane without essentially accusing her of cheating. I don't know how to reconcile the medical impossibility with the pregnancy reality. And I don't know how to separate my legitimate questions from my trauma-induced paranoia. Has anyone else dealt with something like this, where something that should be impossible happens, and you don't know whether to trust the miracle or trust your gut? Edit. For everyone saying to just get a paternity test. Yes, that is obviously an option. But asking for one is basically saying, I don't trust you and think you cheated. That is not a conversation you can take back. Edit 2. I know how this sounds. I know I sound paranoid and awful. I am trying to figure out whether these doubts are legitimate concerns or trauma responses. That is why I am here, instead of confronting my wife. Update 1. So I took everyone's advice and talked to Sloane about my concerns. Not accusations, just honest communication about my confusion over the medical situation and my anxiety about how this happened. The conversation went better than I expected, but I am still not entirely at peace with everything. I waited until we were both home from work yesterday, no distractions, and I tried to approach it as calmly as possible. Sloane, I need to talk to you about something that has been bothering me since Tuesday night. She looked worried immediately. Okay, what is wrong? I am struggling with the pregnancy news and I need you to understand. It is not because I am not happy about it. It is because medically, I don't understand how it happened. I explained my confusion about the azoospermia diagnosis, how definitive the doctors had been, how this didn't align with anything I had researched about spontaneous recovery. Her response was exactly what I would expect from someone telling the truth. Wade, I don't know how it happened either. All I know is that I am pregnant, and it is yours, and I thought you would be excited. Then she said something that hit me hard. You know, I am not Ashley, right? That stopped me cold. She wasn't defensive or angry. She was sad. Like she could see exactly where my mind had gone, and it hurt her that I was even capable of thinking it. I know you are not Ashley, I said, but I also know that medicine doesn't usually get things this wrong, and my brain is trying to make sense of information that doesn't fit together. We talked for about an hour. She was patient, answered every question I had, reassured me about her travel schedule and late nights at work. She even offered to show me her phone, her email, whatever I needed to feel secure. I don't want to look through your phone, I told her. I want to trust you. I am just confused about the medical side of things. She suggested I call my urologist to discuss whether my diagnosis could have changed, or whether there were factors we hadn't considered. Maybe there is something we don't know, she said. Maybe the testing was wrong, or something has improved. That felt like a reasonable next step. If there was a medical explanation for this pregnancy, Dr. Donovan would be able to help me understand it. I called his office this morning and got an appointment for today at 3 p.m. The receptionist mentioned that follow-up testing would probably be recommended to reassess my current status. But here is the thing that is still bothering me. When I mentioned making the doctor's appointment, Sloane's reaction was a little odd. That is a good idea, she said. We should definitely understand what is happening medically. But there was something in her tone. Not defensive exactly, but careful, like she was choosing her words. And this morning, while she was getting ready for work, I noticed her being more protective of her phone than usual. Not secretive, just attentive to it in a way that felt different. I am probably reading into things. Pregnancy is stressful, especially when it comes with medical questions. She might just be processing her own anxiety about the situation. The doctor's appointment is in 4 hours. I am hoping Dr. Donovan can give me some clarity about whether spontaneous recovery from azoospermia is possible in my case, or whether we need to look at other explanations. I want to believe this is a medical miracle. I want to be excited about having a baby with my wife. But until I understand how this happened, I cannot shake the feeling that something important is missing from this picture. Edit. Appointment went. Interesting. Dr. Donovan was diplomatically surprised by the pregnancy news. Said follow-up testing was definitely indicated, and that we should verify the current situation from all angles. Not sure what to make of that phrasing. Edit 2. Sloan asked how the appointment went when I got home. When I told her the doctor wants to do new testing, she said that makes sense. We want to understand everything. Again, that careful tone. Maybe I am overthinking, but it feels like she is managing this conversation instead of just having it. Update 2. I have been trying to convince myself I am being paranoid, but things keep happening that make my anxiety worse instead of better. I don't know if I am seeing patterns that aren't there or if my instincts are trying to tell me something important. Yesterday, I got my new test results back from Dr. Donovan. My sperm count is still 0. Not improved, not borderline. 0 exactly like it was 3 years ago. The doctor was very diplomatic about it, but essentially said that natural conception remains highly improbable given my current status. When I told Sloan about the results, her reaction was strange. She didn't seem surprised or confused like I expected. She just nodded and said, "Well, medical testing isn't perfect. Bodies are complicated." That is technically true, but it is not how someone usually responds to information that should be shocking. It felt like she was already prepared for that news. Then this morning, something happened that I cannot stop thinking about. I was checking our joint account to pay some bills, and I noticed a withdrawal for $850 from last Friday, just marked as ATM withdrawal with no other details. That is unusual for us. We typically use cards for everything, and when we do need cash, it is usually for small amounts. When I asked Sloan about it, she said it was for a work thing. Client meeting expenses that I will get reimbursed for, she explained. Easier to handle in cash. That could be completely legitimate. Her company does sometimes reimburse expenses. But $850 in cash is a lot for a client meeting, and she has never handled it that way before. I am also noticing that she has been more protective of her phone lately. Not hiding it exactly, but more aware of where it is. Quicker to flip it over when notifications come in. This morning I walked into the kitchen while she was texting, and she quickly finished and put the phone away. "Work stuff," she said when she saw me notice. Again, completely plausible. But the pattern is what is bothering me. The worst part is that I don't know if these observations are legitimate concerns, or if I am creating problems where none exist. When you have been betrayed before, it is hard to tell the difference between intuition and paranoia. I have been thinking about what Ashley did differently in those last few months before I found out about the cheating. She wasn't obviously sneaky, but there were small changes. More protective of her phone, more work events that ran late, more cash transactions that I didn't think to question at the time. Sloan isn't Ashley, I know that, but the similarities in behavior are making my anxiety spiral. Yesterday she mentioned that she has a work dinner next Friday that might run late. "Don't wait up," she said. "These client entertainment things can go pretty long. Maybe I am reading too much into everything. Maybe pregnancy hormones are making her more private about work stress. Maybe the cash withdrawal was exactly what she said it was. But my gut is telling me something's wrong, and I don't know whether to trust that feeling or work to overcome it. I am considering asking for a paternity test, but I know that is relationship-ending territory if I am wrong. You cannot accuse your wife of cheating and then just take it back if the test comes back positive. The other option is to hire a private investigator to see if there is anything to investigate before I blow up my marriage over medical improbability and suspicious cash withdrawals. I hate that I am even thinking this way. I hate that Ashley's betrayal is making me doubt someone who has been nothing but loving and patient with my issues. But I also cannot ignore the voice in my head that is screaming that something doesn't add up. Edit, just to clarify, I am not planning to hire a private investigator. That was just anxiety spiraling. I know how that sounds, and it is not something I would actually do. Edit 2, for everyone saying to just ask for the paternity test. You are probably right. I need to either trust my wife or admit I don't. Living in this uncertainty is driving me crazy. Final update, I owe a lot of people an apology, starting with my wife. This week taught me the difference between legitimate concerns and trauma responses, and I nearly destroyed something good because I couldn't tell them apart. After my last post, I was spiraling pretty hard. The combination of medical impossibility, behavioral changes I thought I was seeing, and my history with Ashley had me convinced that something was fundamentally wrong. I was analyzing every conversation, every transaction, every glance at her phone, like I was conducting an investigation. Tuesday morning, Sloane found me in the kitchen at 6 a.m. Googling signs of infidelity during pregnancy on my laptop. She sat down across from me and said something that changed everything. "Wade, do you want to talk about what is really going on with you? Because this isn't about medical testing anymore." That is when I broke down completely. I told her everything. The paranoid thoughts, the pattern seeking, how Ashley's betrayal had programmed me to look for deception even when I didn't want to, how terrified I was that I was about to lose everything again, but to something even worse because now there was going to be a child involved. Her response was not what I expected. "I know you have been struggling with this," she said. "I could see it in how you have been acting. The questions, the way you have been watching me, checking on things. I was hoping you had talked to me about it instead of suffering alone." She had noticed my surveillance behavior, of course she had, but instead of getting angry or defensive, she had been waiting for me to come to her. "The cash withdrawal you asked about. It was for a baby gift for my sister's shower next month. I wanted to surprise you by handling it myself since money's been tight. The work dinner Friday. It is actually a celebration dinner that my team planned after I told them about the pregnancy. They wanted to take me somewhere nice. They wanted to my mom about everything. I didn't want to make you more anxious by constantly bringing up symptoms and concerns. Every single thing I had interpreted as suspicious had a completely innocent explanation. More than innocent. Thoughtful. I felt like the biggest asshole in the world. But instead of being angry, Sloane said something that showed me who she really is. "I think you should talk to someone professionally about this. Not because there is something wrong with you, but because Ashley really damaged your ability to trust. And that is affecting us now." She was right. I called a therapist that afternoon and got an appointment for Thursday. Dr. Martinez helped me understand something crucial. Trauma creates hypervigilance that can turn normal behaviors into threat signals. My brain was looking for evidence of betrayal so actively that it was finding patterns in completely innocent activities. "When someone's been unfaithful to you," she explained, "your nervous system learns to scan for danger constantly. Even in safe relationships, you are looking for proof that you are about to be hurt again." That perfectly described what I had been doing. Instead of celebrating a miracle pregnancy, I had been conducting a paranoia-fueled investigation of my wife. Friday, I asked Sloane if she would be willing to do a paternity test, not because I doubted her, but because I needed the medical certainty to shut down the anxiety voice in my head. "Of course," she said immediately. "If that is what you need to feel secure, let's do it." We got the results today. 99.9% probability that I am the father. Dr. Donovan called this afternoon to discuss the results and the pregnancy. Turns out that while azoospermia is usually permanent, there are rare cases where sperm production can resume, especially if the original cause was related to stress, medication, or temporary hormonal imbalances. "It is uncommon," he said, "but not impossible. Bodies can be unpredictable, especially when circumstances change. My circumstances had changed significantly over the past year. New job, less stress, better health habits. Apparently sometimes that is enough to make a difference, even when doctors don't expect it. So I was wrong about everything. The pregnancy is legitimate, the timing was coincidental, and every suspicious sign I thought I saw was either innocent behavior or my own paranoid interpretation. What I learned this week is that healing from betrayal doesn't just happen automatically when you find someone trustworthy. You have to actively work to separate past trauma from present reality, and sometimes you need professional help to do that. Sloane and I are going to couples counseling starting next week. Not because our relationship is broken, but because we want tools to handle my trust issues before they cause real damage. She has been incredibly patient through this whole mess, but I cannot expect her to manage my trauma responses alone. That is my responsibility. The baby is due in March. I am going to be a father with someone who loves me enough to get help for problems I created. I am incredibly grateful and honestly a little amazed that my paranoid spiral didn't destroy everything. For anyone dealing with trust issues from past relationships, get professional help before your trauma sabotages something good. I almost lost the best thing in my life because I was looking for problems that didn't exist. Sometimes the problem isn't what is happening now. It is what happened before that makes you think it is happening again. Edit. Thank you to everyone who pushed me to communicate instead of investigate. You probably saved my marriage. Edit 2. For anyone wondering about azoospermia recovery, It is rare but possible. Bodies are weird, and medical diagnoses aren't always permanent. But if you are dealing with fertility issues, definitely work with doctors rather than hoping for spontaneous improvement.